With a new set on the horizon, there are so many decks that I'm very excited to build, and here are a few that I want to jump into right away. Of course, we don't know every card in this set, so a lot of this could be switched out with something brand new. However, we do know some of the biggest cards, so let's get into it. Hi everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Here are some decks that I think you should try out right away. First, we're going to take a look at Raikou, or as I call it, Raikou. This Pokemon is pretty dang good. 2 energy to be able to attack for 60 damage and hit your opponent's bench, which can set up some big plays later. In this deck, we have 2 Zeraoras, 2 Pichus, 2 Oricorios, 2 of the cows, and 1 Pikachu EX. This probably has a little too much going on in it right now, but there's a lot that I want to play around with early, so this is where we're going to start. The idea behind this, of course, is if we run into something like Oricorio, we have Zera and our own Oricorio to deal with it. If we run into a deck that's only running some EX Pokemon, they're already in trouble with something like Oricorio. We have our Raikou that is able to do a decent amount of damage in the active spot and also help us draw cards, while we have Pikachu EX with the Thunderbolt, able to do 150 damage and kind of finish off something that we need to KO. The rest of the deck, we have 1 X speed. This could be used early to move something like Zera or Oricorio around to get Pichu in the active spot. We also can use it later to move Raikou out of that active spot. We've got a red card, a couple of Pokeballs, Professors, 2 Cyruses, and the big reason behind this, of course, is because with Raikou's ability to deal damage to the bench, we're setting up opportunities for us to Cyrus later and possibly sweep with something like Pikachu EX. And we have 2 elemental switches as well. These are here really to set up opportunities for Zeraora to power either Pikachu or Raikou very, very quickly. If we can get the cow online super fast, I'm sorry I keep calling it Raikou, but it happened on stream once and I can't get it out of my head. If we can get Raikou online really quickly, we could do some serious damage and start chipping in the bench, or we have the opportunity to maybe do damage right away with something like Pikachu EX and take out a big threat. This one could be really, really fun. Again, we might have too many moving parts here, but I'm very excited to play with a super fast deck like this, and Lightning always giving you the option to flex into Oricorio is very powerful also. I could see decks with this running Arceus EX as well. Could be a really great way to not only chip damage at them with Raikou, but also sweep with Arceus instead of something like Pikachu. Next, I want to move away from EX Pokemon for a second, even though this deck has multiple EX Pokemon in it, and I want to talk about the combination between Latios and Latias. I think this will be a really fun deck to build while not being extremely meta. However, these cards being paired together is really cool. We have our Latias able to do more damage when Latios is on the bench, and then we have Latios able to do 120 damage with Luster Purge. I do think there are going to be some fun decks with this and possibly even things like Gardevoir, but I'm keeping this one pretty simple here. This is Sylveon EX. It's a Psychic deck, and not running Sylveon EX honestly is a crime if you're running a Psychic deck. So we've got the 2 EVs, the 2 Sylveons. I have 1 Giratina to power on the bench if we're kind of not powering the way we want, right? Also, this can come in and be our finisher. And then I have 2 Latios and 2 Latias. The rest of the deck, red card, Silver, Sabrina, Cyrus, Mars. I have 1 Celestic Town Elder. And the idea behind having this in the deck, of course, is Latios and Latias don't really work that well without each other. So if one of them goes down early, I can use this to fish it up out of that discard pile, bring it back in play so we can make some of the bigger plays that we need to make as the match goes on. I think this one could be really fun, mainly because when you have a combination like this and you get to set it up and do that 120 damage with Luster Purge right into a retreat and fight with something else, that could be really, really satisfying. And of course, Sylveon just lets us draw through our entire deck in a single turn, basically. So yeah, it's pretty broken, and in a Psychic deck, it's crazy not to run it. Coming up next, I have 2 Entei decks that I want to share with you right here. This first one is Entei Char. So this is removing Sylveon from the equation, even though I think Sylveon is going to be more meta probably than this, and that allows you to flex into Flareon. This is going to be Entei Stoke Charizard. So you can get Entei in that active spot, power it up. We also have Magby that could power to get something like that online. That will help us draw out and get our Charizard in the match. If we can't get it early, we will use Entei in that active spot to keep digging so we could get Charizard online. This deck also has a single copy of Torkoal in it in case we need to deal with something like Oricorio. Torkoal can one-shot it. We do have one elemental switch in this deck to move some of our energy around on something like a Charizard that we had to power early. Then we bring in Entei, put Entei in the active spot, send some energy up, and fight with it as well. This deck, of course, has the rare candies we need, a couple of Pokeballs, a couple of Professors, Sabrina, Cyrus, a Leaf to possibly get something awkward out of that active spot early, a Lily, and a Giant Cape. Again, I think Sylveon is probably going to be a little more consistent than this, but I absolutely wanted to take these two powerful Fire EX Pokemon out for a little bit of a walk. Let's talk about another deck here that does use Sylveon EX. And that is going to be Sylveon EX, Flareon EX, a base Flareon, and the Entei. So this one could be really cool. The draw power on this is absurd, right? Having Entei in that active spot plus Sylveon on the bench is just unbelievably powerful. Then we have Flareon EX that can help us get some of that discarded energy and use it to power Entei or possibly the base Flareon once it gets to the active spot. We have two Pokemon that can do a lot of damage because of this. We have Entei that has the base 60 up to 120 with 4, and then we have Flareon that does 130. This could be a really powerful combination. The two elemental switches we have right here allow us to move some energy around and get it up to either of the Pokemon that we need. I do think there's another version of this deck that could be really fun with something like Kiawe and Turtonator, so you get the energy early, but I think Flareon EX is just so unbelievably powerful that this combination could work pretty well and just give us an insane amount of draw, which the deck already has. But I mean, imagine how quickly this would go if you hit a Sylveon, Professors, Entei, and turn. Like, your hand would be unbelievable. Next, I want to take a look at a super cheesy one from this set. This is Slowking. I don't know what the Slowpoke will be in this set right now, so we're just kind of using this base Slowpoke that has Rest. This also has Ambipom in it, which lets you pull a tool from your deck into your hand, as well as two Traveling Merchants. This is not a great deck, but this sounds pretty fun, and I wanted to build it here because I do think it'll be one of those cheesy decks that's going to be pretty hilarious when it works, right? For a single water energy, this Slowking could hit for 100 damage. We also have 2 energy on the Ambipom. I think there's a reality where you put something like Stantler in here too, because if it has a tool attached, it does 70 damage. However, you have to discard a lot of these tools for Slowking, so you might not be able to use that in the way you want. The deck has 6 tools in it, 2 of those Traveling Merchants, 2 Pokeballs, 2 Professors. Super cheesy, super fun. Next, we have our newest Water EX Suicune here with Palkia EX and Milotic. This Pokemon I think is so fun. Because of it, I don't have Irida in the deck to heal, but that might be something that we change. We also have the new Mantike in this deck, and when I was building this, I had to put Magikarp as a placeholder for Feebas. We might be able to fix that here for the edit, but I have Magikarp here, which is Feebas. I have a Pokemon Flute because Suicune wants your opponents to have a bench, right? And if they do not have a bench, we're doing less damage. Obviously, our bench is going to be completely full as best we can, but we want their bench to be as well, even if we KO something. We also have Sabrina, Professors, couple of Misties, a Leaf, which is mainly for Palkia, but also kind of for Suicune. I mean, all of these Pokemon have a high retreat cost. We might need multiple Leafs in this deck, a Cyrus, and a Giant Cape. If we can, we have Mantike in that active spot early. It powers either Palkia or Suicune, bring in Suicune into that active spot, deal a ton of damage, and then have Palkia there to clean up. And then for our Oricorio, we have an answer for that with Milotic. That would be the plan with this deck. Should be a super, super fun one. I feel like this Suicune could be really powerful, especially because it kind of entices your opponent to not play a lot of their cards, and if they do, you're swinging for absurd damage. There are some other decks I wanted to talk about. Like, I think Miltank 18 Trainer is going to be hilarious. So that would be running the new promo Miltank and just filling your deck with an absurd amount of things to keep this alive. So you've got Giant Capes, you've got Water Energy and Irida. You're just doing everything you can to keep Miltank online as long as possible so that you can build up that Rolling Frenzy and do an insane amount of damage. And I also think there are going to be some cool dark decks with something like Zoroark that is going to be very, very fun. So I'm excited to build so much in the new set. Let me know what you're most excited about or a deck that you've been cooking up in the comments. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Of course, we'll be live with the new set just about every day, probably for like 2 weeks straight with it. I love you guys, and I will see you all next time. We did it.